I had a bad feeling about the nights my wife stayed late at work, a cold dread that settled deep in my bones. So one evening, I decided to pretend to fall asleep on the living room couch just to see what time she'd really come home. While I was peeking through my eyelids, the doorbell rang. It was a pizza delivery guy, and he looked right at me. He leaned in and whispered, "Sir, wait until the street light goes out. You will see and understand everything." When that street light finally flickered and went out, I stopped breathing at what I saw. It wasn't just a late night. It was the beginning of the end of everything I thought I knew. My name is Alan, and at 58 years old, I believed I knew everything there was to know about my wife, Holly. We'd been married for 32 years, a lifetime, and I truly thought we had built something solid, something real. But lately, something had shifted in our house, a subtle discord I couldn't quite put my finger on. It started about 3 months ago. Holly, an administrative assistant at a medical office downtown, suddenly began having what she called late meetings every Thursday. At first, I didn't think much of it. Work demands change, responsibilities grow, and at 54, Holly was more dedicated to her job than ever. But then, I started noticing the details that didn't quite add up. The first thing that struck me was the smell. When Holly came home from these supposed late meetings, she smelled different, not like the usual mix of office air freshener and coffee that typically clung to her clothes. Instead, there was a sweet, almost floral scent I couldn't place. When I asked her about it, she'd shrug, mumbling something about a new air freshener at the office or a coworker's perfume rubbing off during a long meeting. Then there were the clothes. Holly was always meticulous about her appearance, but on these Thursday nights, she would come home with her blouse slightly wrinkled, her hair not quite as neat as when she left. Her lipstick would be completely gone, not just faded from a long day, but completely wiped clean. When I mentioned it once, she laughed goot and said she must have rubbed it off during dinner at the office. Dinner at the office. That was another thing. Holly had never mentioned eating dinner at work before these Thursday meetings started. In all our years together, she had always complained about the terrible vending machine food and how she couldn't wait to get home for a proper meal. Now, suddenly, she was having elaborate dinners during these late meetings. But the phone calls were what really started to bother me. Holly had always been open with her phone, leaving it lying around, answering calls in front of me without a second thought. But now, when her phone rang on Thursday afternoons or evenings, she would step into another room to answer it. I could hear her voice through the walls, but it was quieter, more careful, as if she was making sure I couldn't quite make out the words. One Thursday evening in early October, I decided I couldn't take it anymore. I told her I would be reading in the living room, maybe watching some late-night television. She kissed me goodbye at 6:30 p.m., saying she might be home late, possibly after 11. She was wearing a navy blue dress I had bought her for her birthday 2 years ago, and she looked beautiful. But there was something in her eyes when she looked at me, something that felt like goodbye rather than see you later. I settled into my recliner with a book, but I couldn't concentrate. Every car that passed by our house made me look up, wondering if it was Holly coming home. But as the hours passed, I realized I wasn't just waiting for her return. I was watching for something, though I didn't know what. At around 10:15 p.m., the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, and for a moment I considered not answering, but the ring came again, more insistent. I opened the door to find a young man in his early 20s, holding a pizza delivery bag. He looked confused, checking his phone and then our house number. "I think I have the wrong address," he said, apologizing. "I was supposed to deliver to Maple Street, but this is Elm Street, right?" "That's right," I confirmed. "Maple Street is 2 blocks over." He thanked me and started to leave, but then he paused and looked back at me. There was something odd in his expression, something almost knowing. "Sir," he said quietly, glancing around as if making sure no one else was listening. "I've been delivering in this neighborhood for 2 years now. I see a lot of things." I frowned, not understanding what he was getting at. "Okay," I said some slowly. He stepped closer, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "That street light," he said, pointing to the lamp post at the corner of our street. "It's been acting up lately. Goes out around 11:30 most Thursday nights. Has some kind of electrical issue, I guess." I looked at the light, which was shining normally. "I hadn't noticed," I said. The delivery boy shifted the pizza bag in his arms. "Sir," he said, and there was something urgent in his voice. "Now wait until the streetlight goes out. You will see and understand everything." Before I could ask him what he meant, he was already walking away, disappearing into the darkness beyond the reach of that very streetlight he had just mentioned. I stood in my doorway for a long moment, trying to make sense of what had just happened. A random pizza delivery boy giving me cryptic advice about waiting for a streetlight to go out. It sounded absurd. But as I closed the door and returned to my recliner, I couldn't shake the feeling that he knew something I didn't. Something about my own neighborhood, my own street, possibly even about my own wife. I looked at my watch. 10:25 p.m. If the light went out around 11:30, like he said, I only had about an hour to wait. I turned off all the lights in the living room and positioned myself where I could see out the front window while still remaining hidden from view. The street light cast a bright circle of light on the pavement below, illuminating about half of our front yard and part of the street. Everything seemed normal, quiet, peaceful. But as I sat there in the darkness of my own living room, waiting for a street light to malfunction, I realized that nothing about this situation was normal. I was 58 years old, hiding in my own house, following the advice of a stranger, waiting to spy on my own wife. How had my marriage come to this? The minutes ticked by slowly. At 11, I heard a car engine in the distance, and my heart rate picked up. But the car passed by without stopping. At 11:15, another car approached, slower this time. Again, it continued past our house. I was beginning to feel foolish, sitting in the dark like some kind of amateur detective. Then, at exactly 11:28, the streetlight began to flicker. As I watched the streetlight flicker like a dying candle, my mind began to wander through the past few months, picking up details I had somehow managed to overlook or explain away. The pizza delivery boy's words echoed in my head. "You will see and understand everything." But what was there to understand? What had I been missing? I thought back to early September, just after Labor Day weekend. Holly had been acting differently even then, though I hadn't recognized it as the beginning of a pattern. She had started taking longer showers, sometimes staying in the bathroom for 45 minutes or more. When I asked her about it, she said she was trying a new skincare routine she had read about. I had accepted her explanation without question. But now, sitting in the dark, I wondered if it was really about skincare, or if she was trying to wash away something else, something she didn't want me to smell or see. The flickering intensified. The light would go out for a few seconds, then come back on, weaker each time. My breath caught in my throat. This was it, the moment of truth. And then, at precisely 11:30 p.m., the streetlight went out completely, plunging the corner of our street into darkness. It was then I saw it. A car, a dark sedan, parked just beyond the reach of the now dark streetlight, had been there all along. Its engine was off, its lights off, completely hidden in the shadows. As soon as the streetlight died, the car's interior light flickered on for a moment, and I saw two figures inside. One was Holly. The other was a man. They were kissing. Not a quick peck, but a deep, passionate embrace. My blood ran cold. I watched, paralyzed, as Holly emerged from the car, smoothing down her dress. The man followed, and I recognized him immediately. It was Marcus, Holly's new boss, a man I had met once at an office party. He was younger than me, probably in his late 40s, with a slick, confident air about him. They walked towards our house, not hand in hand, but close, their bodies almost brushing. As they reached our front door, I saw Marcus lean in and whisper something to Holly. She laughed, a soft, intimate sound I rarely heard from her anymore. Then he kissed her again, a lingering kiss right on our porch, just feet from where I sat hidden in the darkness. My world shattered. 32 years. All the trust, all the shared memories, All the love reduced to this. A clandestine kiss in the dark, a betrayal playing out on my own doorstep. I wanted to storm out there, to confront them, to scream. But I couldn't move. A part of me, a deep primal part, knew I needed to see more, to understand the full extent of this deception. Holly unlocked the door and slipped inside, Marcus right behind her. I heard their hushed voices, then the soft click of the bedroom door closing. The silence that followed was deafening, filled only with the frantic pounding of my own heart. I stayed on the couch, numb, until I heard Marcus leave around 1 a.m. Only then did I creep into our bedroom. Holly was already asleep, or pretending to be, her face serene. The sweet floral scent I had noticed before was stronger now, clinging to her. Her lipstick was gone. Her blouse was wrinkled. All the pieces clicked into place. The next morning, Holly acted as if nothing had happened. She made breakfast, humming a cheerful tune. "Good morning, sleepyhead," she said, stirring pancakes. "I was just about to wake you. I made your favorite, blueberry pancakes, and I even remembered to put extra medication in the food to compensate for missing a day of vitamins." "That sounds wonderful," I called back, my voice sounding surprisingly normal. "You spoil me." I walked into the kitchen where Holly was standing at the stove, looking beautiful, domestic in her blue robe, her graying hair pulled back in a ponytail. She turned to smile at me, and for a split second, I almost convinced myself that I had imagined everything from the night before. This was Holly, the woman who had cried at our daughter's wedding, who had held my hand through my father's funeral, who had supported me through every difficult moment of our marriage. But then I saw the small bottle of vitamins sitting on the counter next to a glass of orange juice, and reality crashed back over me. "Don't forget your vitamins," she said, kissing my cheek as I sat down at the table. "Dr. Peterson said they're especially important given your family history." Dr. Peterson's. I had never heard Holly mention that name before, but she said it so casually, as if I should know who she was talking about. We had been using the same family doctor, Dr. Williams, for over 15 years. Who was Dr. Peterson, and when had Holly started consulting with him about my health? "Right," I said carefully. "Dr. Peterson, remind me what he said again." Holly didn't seem to notice anything unusual about my question. "Just that, with your father's heart attack and your grandfather's heart disease, you really need to be proactive about cardiovascular health. The supplements he recommended are specifically designed to support heart function." She was lying so smoothly, so convincingly, that if I hadn't overheard her conversation with Marcus the night before, I would have believed every word. She had probably been practicing this story for months, refining it until it sounded completely natural. I picked up the vitamin bottle and examined it more closely than I ever had before. The label looked professional, with a pharmaceutical company logo and detailed ingredient listings. But now that I was looking for it, I could see that the lace was slightly crooked, as if it had been applied by hand rather than by machine. This wasn't a real pharmaceutical product. It was something that had been specially prepared, probably by the mysterious Dr. Peterson. "I should probably schedule a follow-up appointment with him," I said, watching Holly's reaction carefully, "just to see how I'm responding to the supplements." For the briefest moment, I saw something flicker across Holly's face. Panic, maybe, or calculation. But she recovered so quickly that if I hadn't been watching for it, I would have missed it completely. "Oh, that's not necessary," she said, turning back to the pancakes. "Dr. Peterson said the supplements are perfectly safe for long-term use. No monitoring required. Besides, you know how busy doctors are. He specifically said not to bother with follow-up appointments unless you experience side effects." Of course, he had said that. They couldn't risk having me actually meet this Dr. Peterson and potentially discover that he wasn't really a doctor at all, or that he was involved in their plot to kill me. I forced myself to take the vitamins, swallowing them with the orange juice, knowing that I was ingesting poison but unable to refuse without arousing suspicion. As the pills went down my throat, I made a silent promise to myself that this would be the last time. I needed to figure out how to stop taking them without Holly noticing. During breakfast, I tried to gather more information without seeming suspicious. You know, I've been thinking about my health a lot lately, I said between bites of pancakes. Maybe I should update my will just to make sure everything is in order. Holly's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Your will? Why would you be thinking about that? Well, you know, with the family history and everything, it seems responsible to make sure all our paperwork is current. When was the last time we reviewed our life insurance policies? Oh, Alan, Holly said, her voice taking on a slightly patronizing tone. You're being morbid. You're only 58 years old, and you're in good health. There's no need to start thinking about wills and insurance policies. But I could see in her eyes that she was thinking about exactly those things. She knew down to the dollar how much my death would be worth, because she had probably been calculating it for months. I suppose you're right, I said. I just want to make sure you're taken care of if anything ever happens to me. Nothing is going to happen to you, Holly said firmly. Not for many, many years. And when that time comes, hopefully when we're both very old. Yes, I'll be fine. We've made sure of that. We've made sure of that. Not we've planned for that, or we've prepared for that, but we've made sure of that. As if my death was something that had already been arranged, rather than something we're simply prepared for. After breakfast, Holly left for work with her usual kiss and reminder to take care of myself. The moment her car disappeared around the corner, I was on the phone to our family lawyer. Jim, it's Alan Hartwell, I said when he answered. I need to ask you about something, and I need you to keep this conversation confidential. Of course, Alan. What can I help you with? Has Holly contacted you recently about updating our wills or changing our life insurance beneficiaries? There was a pause. Alan, you know, I can't discuss communications with Holly without her permission, even to you. Jim, this is important. I'm not asking for details. I just need to know if she's been in touch with you. Another pause. Longer this time. No, Alan. Holly hasn't contacted me about anything in over 2 years. My suspicions were confirmed. They weren't just having an affair. They were planning my murder. The vitamins were poison. The late meetings were planning sessions, and the Dr. Peterson was their accomplice. I had to act fast. I immediately called my daughter Sarah, who lived in another state. I told her everything, keeping my voice calm despite the terror gripping me. She was horrified, but quickly took charge. We devised a plan. I would continue to pretend to take the vitamins, but secretly dispose of them. Sarah would contact the police and arrange for them to be ready to intervene. The next Thursday, I was asleep in bed when I heard Holly's car pull into the driveway. I had rigged a small recorder under the bed. I heard her enter the bedroom, then the hushed voices of her and Marcus. Is he asleep? Marcus whispered. Completely, Holly replied. The last dose should have him completely unconscious, and even if it didn't, cardiac arrest is typically instantaneous. No suffering. Marcus moved closer to the bed. Are you sure this will look natural? No signs of external trauma? The electrode marks will be completely undetectable after I remove them, Dr. Peterson said, his voice chillingly calm. And the electrical signature will match that of a natural heart attack perfectly. I've done this before. He had done this before. Dr. Peterson wasn't just a disgraced doctor helping with his first murder. He was a serial killer who specialized in making deaths appear natural. Just to be clear about our agreement, Marcus said to Holly, I get 40% of everything. The life insurance, the house sale proceeds, all of it. 40% of $400,000 is $160,000, Holly replied, plus half of whatever the house sells for. That should be at least another $50,000. You're looking at over $200,000, Marcus, and Dr. Peterson gets his $50,000 fee. As agreed, Marcus continued, 50,000 is a bargain for this kind of service. Most people in my position charge considerably more, Dr. Peterson said. They were discussing the financial details of my murder while standing over my supposedly unconscious body. The greed, the callousness, the complete lack of human emotion. It was beyond anything I could have imagined. Dr. Peterson began making final adjustments to his equipment. I'm ready to proceed, he announced. Once I activate the device, cardiac arrest will occur within 30 seconds. Are you both prepared to witness this? We're ready, Holly said, and I could hear her moving closer to the bed. That's when I opened my eyes and sat up. The shock on their faces was immediate and complete. Holly stumbled backward, her hands flying to her mouth. Marcus went pale and started looking around the room as if searching for an escape route. Dr. Peterson froze with his hand on the electrical device. Surprise, I said calmly, pulling the recording wire from under my shirt. I heard every word. Before any of them could react, the sound of sirens filled the air, growing louder as police cars approached the house. Sarah had received my signal and called in the cavalry. Alan, Holly stammered. What, how are you? Awake? Awake, I finished for her. I stopped taking your poison vitamins a week ago, Holly, and I've been recording everything you've said and done. The sound of heavy footsteps on the stairs announced the arrival of the police. Within seconds, our bedroom was filled with armed officers, shouting commands for everyone to get on the ground. As they handcuffed Holly, she looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. Pure hatred. You were supposed to die, she hissed. You were supposed to be dead by now. Sorry to disappoint you, I replied. But I had other plans. Marcus was already in handcuffs and Dr. Peterson was being read his rights. The medical equipment was being photographed and collected as evidence. Everything they had planned to use to kill me was now proof of their conspiracy to commit murder. As the police led them away, Holly turned back one final time. 32 years, Alan, she said. 32 years I wasted on you. No, Holly, I corrected her. 32 years you pretended to love me while planning to kill me. The waste was all on your side. 6 months later, as I sat in a courtroom and watched as the judge sentenced Holly to life in prison without the possibility of parole, Marcus received 25 years for conspiracy to commit murder. Dr. Peterson, who turned out to have killed at least 3 other people in similar scheme, was sentenced to death. The house felt different after everything that happened. Too many memories, too many ghosts. I sold it and moved across the country to Oregon, where I had always wanted to live, but never felt free to go. I bought a small cabin near the coast with no neighbors close enough to see my lights at night. There are no streetlights here. No mysterious delivery boys with cryptic warnings. Just the sound of the ocean and the knowledge that I survived something that should have killed me. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if that pizza delivery boy hadn't warned me to watch for the streetlight to go out. Would I have discovered Holly's plan in time? Would I be dead now, buried somewhere while she and Marcus spent my money and congratulated themselves on the perfect crime? But I don't dwell on those thoughts. Instead, I focus on the future I never expected to have. A life free from poison, free from lies, free from the woman who spent 3 decades pretending to love me while planning my death. The streetlight never went out for me. Instead, it illuminated the truth just in time to save my life.